search was already like something really monopolistic. Google had kind of everything. Bing is there, but basically it's anecdotal. I think in the future, you're going to have much more competition because people are not going to use search. They're going to use LLMs, and models vary a lot. Even though ChatGPT is one of the biggest ones, I think there's going to be much more competition. And each of them is kind of going to roll out their own Google Search Console, but you will still have the need for one tool to kind of consolidate all of this data, in my opinion.
Hey, Maxim, thanks for joining me here. So, just a bit of context. I write a newsletter called The Content Engineer, and I'm basically writing about and documenting the rise of a new job title or a new role. And that role is a content engineer. And right now, I'm defining this as somebody who blends deep editorial expertise with what's now an emerging AI skill set. So, in particular, AI automation as somebody that can create really focused, high quality editorial programs and then scale them with AI. And I actually see a big part of this role, in my view, is understanding how AI search works, which is why I'm so excited to talk with you today. So just like with traditional content marketers, they had to get really good at SEO. I think content engineers are going to need a really deep grasp of LLM SEO and all the sort of inner workings of these search engines. So yeah, I'm kind of diving deep into that right now. And I was just figured that we could use this opportunity for you to walk me through your product, Doppler. You know, you could kind of screen share, give me a bit of a demo, and we could just kind of riff on what's happening under the hood.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks for having me first. I've been working on Doppler for a few weeks now. It's really like a new product, just like it's a really new market. And there's been a lot of solutions emerging recently, as you probably noticed. I completely agree with you that to be a good content engineer or to at least stay relevant in SEO nowadays, you need to have a good understanding of how LLM will rank your product or your brand. And that's why I'm working on Doppler. Happy to do a screen share or build a full tool suite to let people be able to rank better. So I think you can see my screen.
Yep. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, you're good.
So basically the idea of Doppler is, unlike a lot of tools which will try to simulate chats and be stuck on the simulating thing, I'm trying to give you real data. And to do this, what I'm doing is I'm tracking basically when AI crawlers come onto your website, and I'm reporting those as like basically you were an impression within a chat of someone. So
Hmm.
with Doppler, you really
Hmm.
get the full picture of how many times your product or your brand appears in the chats of people. I also let you track clicks. However, we're not going to see any here.
Oh, you
But
do? Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
this was actually one of my questions for you. Maybe just while we're on this analytics dashboard was like sort of how you're defining, an impression or a mention, and then a site versus a citation, and then versus a click. I actually haven't seen any tools that can track clicks yet. So,
so for impressions, what I'm doing is basically I check up from where the request comes from based on an IP range and based on the user agents. What I'm doing is I'm basically making sure that the requests are coming from OpenAI crawlers or from Perplexity crawlers. If they're not, then they cannot be faked.
hmm.
And then for clicks, what I'm doing is, for the moment, I'm only relying on the UTM tags that OpenAI will always happen. I experimented with tracking clicks per session because that is not something you can track right now. And my idea was like I would set up a query parameters in the links, and then basically I would rewrite what the crawlers can see, and then they would hopefully give back these query parameters in the chats.
Dive back into to this analytics dashboard. This is really interesting.
That's the first thing I built. And then I realized that if I really wanted to build a lot of value, I should probably bring up the full tool suite. So I started building also a way to let you know which pages are indexed by the different platforms. I've seen more and more llms.txt
Mm.
new format that people are trying.
Hmm.
I was curious, like, are they really looking at it? And it seems like OpenAI does, at least. And then, of course, I went the other route, like a lot of other tools, which is I try to implement personas and prompts that I will use to simulate chats. And the way I'm doing it is like I'll really let you choose whether you want to run it on ChatGPT, whether you want to run it on Perplexity. Uh, and you can really like set the location, put up a detailed description of who is your persona, so you can really grasp, like get a good grasp of what they see when they search you on ChatGPT. And I managed to simulate those chats. I'm able to tell you whether I found competitors, for example, and to automatically suggest them, of course, whether you ranked as well. And one
Wow.
of the good things that Doppler does is that it lets you see a real preview of how the chat appears in the window. So,
That's sort of similar to like a SEMrush or an Ahrefs gives you a snapshot
yeah,
of like the SERP. Yeah.
that's the idea. Unfortunately, I think not a lot of people are doing it for LLMs.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that. Yeah, that's interesting. So actually, how exactly is this kind of working on the back end? The way that you're actually pulling these snapshots, even sort of finding these prompts. Like, are you pinging APIs, or is it more of like is this like the user UI experience, and you're using like headless browsers and things like that?
Okay, so for the moment, regarding like generating the prompts to simulate the chats, it's fully based on what the person who is using Doppler will choose to simulate on. And then for trying the chats, what I'm doing is like I'm really having a browser from a residential IP using, I don't know if you know Bright Data, their data broker, which basically runs a lot of proxies and stuff. Uh, and so they're running real ChatGPT instances and real Perplexity searches so that what I'm seeing is the real thing that a user would see.
Yeah,
Uh,
wow.
I think that is important. A lot of tools are trying to circumvent that and go through the API. I think you don't really get the full picture if you do it like this. Whereas if you go through ChatGPT, for example, like I do, I've been working recently with an e-commerce brand, and I can like show them this is how your product appears, and here the shopping module was triggered, and you were third in the shopping module, and it looked like this, and they reported the right price and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so yeah, because you're actually showing like what it will actually look like for the
Yeah.
actual user, which is interesting. That I had a slight follow-up to that would be like it must be kind of like a complex problem to solve considering like I know a lot of people are talking about ChatGPT and these tools being like stochastic. Like you open it once at 9 a.m., you ask it a question, and then you ask the identical question at 9:10 in a new window, and you'll get a different response, whether it's just the phrasing or the wording of the answer, or also possibly the brands mentioned in citations. How how do you actually kind of benchmark for like what's good enough to surface in Doppler?
So for the moment, what I do is that I run chats on a daily basis. So the idea is to get variance by running multiple chats multiple times. And what I'm trying to do is that I assume the variance you get from like just a daily run is fine enough for the moment, but it's something that could be scaled up, of course, in the future. Uh, and what I'm most interested in is not really how the content looks like, because I think as long as you're inside the chat, it's fine. Like people are going to read you. Maybe if you're in the top three or last three, it's going to be better. But um, what I'm really interested about is the sources and the citations that are used, because I
Hmm.
that's really where you can get a lot of leverage on how to increase your brand. And I think a good way to track that is to find sources where your competitors are mentioned, but not you. And
Hmm.
of course, like sources which are not owned by competitors.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that way you can maybe ask for a backlink or I don't know, give out some referral link or something and try to rank higher. And then the more you're going to appear in those sources, which are more recurrent than others, uh, the good thing is like AI chats are going to find you more often and then you're going to appear.
Yeah, that's like similar. The value of an Ahrefs of a SEMrush, a lot of it comes from like competitor monitoring, and you end up, but on a keyword basis normally, or I guess also backlinks. But it's interesting to see you kind of like engineering this for LLMs, and it's funny because so obviously on screen right now, and I'm assuming this is how you ended up reaching out to me. My domain, yeah. So could you maybe sort of walk through like what we're looking at, how my
Yeah.
domain came
So
up? Yeah.
what I did is like I basically run a bunch of chats just like I showed earlier, and from those chats, I run a frequency-based test to know like what are the most common sources for this topic. And what I saw is that like you appeared as one of the most important sources, at least in all the chats I run. So maybe it was a bit tailored to the prompts I run, but you were one that appeared a lot.
Oh, that's
And
so
so
interesting.
is I use this opportunity finder, which lets me easily find like sources where my competitors are mentioned. The content is like some kind of blog, which is independently owned, and I just reached out to everybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I manage to get mentioned on those, then anytime someone's gonna ask ChatGPT for one of those tools, I'm probably gonna pop up at least once.
That's so interesting. Wow. And you know what's interesting about that? My that's like my personal website. My domain authority, I think on Ahrefs is like a 6 or something. So, the- which is just kind of interesting because normally, your like number of backlinks, your overall authority, like the age of your site, these things help you rank higher in Google, or at least for their sort of like page rank algorithm. But maybe this kind of point, I have been hearing people say that things like backlinks matter less for showing up in ChatGPT. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to even see that my website would get surfaced at all for something like this.
Well, I have two funny stories about that. The first one is like this page is a blog post I wrote, and it's like it shows some views or some impressions, even though my domain authority is really low. So I'm always surprised like to see it get some views. And then I was talking to some guy who set up a Shopify. Basically, his mom is selling flowers, and she decided to go the Shopify route. So they set up a Shopify, and the first order that they got after 3 weeks of the site being live was someone that found them through ChatGPT.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
And the question is like, oh, a site which is 3 years, like 3 weeks old, is ranking in ChatGPT. And of
Yeah,
course,
see, so yeah, there might be a real opportunity for new brands and
definitely,
smaller websites right now, especially if they can kind of reverse engineer it through a tool like yours, and figure out a way to start ranking for terms. Like,
that's the
yeah,
idea.
that's the idea. Yeah.
I think a lot of it also comes from the fact that the Bing index is really different from the Google index.
Yeah.
And it tends to, I don't know, like it has much more variance, and it tends to suggest pages which are really more, I don't know, like sticking to the query term.
Yeah.
Whereas Google will really understand the intent. I think Bing in some way,
Yeah.
and that's why if you really have the good keywords that ChatGPT will find or that will search for, you might pop out more.
Yeah, I'm noticing that as well. Like, so yeah, being almost like traditional SEO tactics, like very keyword heavy, simple pages, strong like heading structure, like kind of classic SEO stuff works really well in Bing. So I've experimented with a few content pieces like that for Clue, and those rank are all ranking really well in Bing. And then on Cloudflare, I can see that they're getting crawled a lot by ChatGPT bots. But there's less, they're not really like appearing as well in Google. So it is like a whole new sort of angle, I think, which is really interesting. Um, do you think maybe if you click back into
Yeah,
analytics?
sure. I am in there, actually.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, you're there. Yeah. Yeah, and then maybe just one more time, like in really simple terms, just talking about sort of like what we're looking at, like the impressions here. Is
So
that's how many times your brand is being mentioned, etc. I'll let you explain, but yeah.
sure. So basically on the dashboard, the idea is that like you can see easily your number of impressions, and you can also find clicks if you really want, from AI apps, and Google as well. And the idea basically is like you see how many times your brand or your website appeared into the chat of anyone that has been using ChatGPT or Perplexity. And to do that, like you can see which are the pages which are the most visited. You can have access to the distribution as well of which platforms are bringing you those views. And the way it works is that it uses the crawler's visits, and it checks them against their IP ranges that you get from Google or OpenAI, which are open about it. And that way you can make sure that it's real traffic from those platforms, which are then fed to the users in the prompts or in the context, so that the chats can really reply with accurate information to the user. And usually that will include your brand if your website appeared.
Yeah, so so when we see top pages there, so that this is saying that your homepage in the last 3 months has appeared 99 times.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. As a clickable link.
Um, it was in the context. It doesn't mean necessarily that it appeared as a clickable link. Uh, it means that like ChatGPT, when it's responded to the users, adds the context of the page inside the query. Because like ChatGPT, for example, will show you maybe 5 citations, but it actually queried like 90 or 5 or 50,
Mm-hmm.
like more than what it shows.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And
Gotcha.
sometimes you might see it as well. You have a side panel which you can open, and you will find the citations that appeared in the chat, but you can also see like a see more section, and within that section you will find the citations that didn't make it in the chat, but that were actually queried.
Right. Right. I gotcha. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to kind of highlight on Doppler now, and then I just have a few more general questions for you.
Um, Last thing maybe is I have something to let you see your competitors, and it basically finds them from the chats that I've simulated, and then you can kind of like approve them or deny them based on like what you think. So
Oh.
you can
Oh,
track
that's
them
interesting.
easily. And of course, if one of your competitors is not there, you can add it by heading the domain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is interesting. This is like a ChatGPT first. Like these are the other people appearing for your sort
Yeah,
of keywords or,
exactly.
or prompts. Yeah. Um, and then how have you found the difference from going from keywords to like prompts? Uh, like are you still just using like really basic essentially keyword search? Like would it be so for my company, would it be something like competitive intelligence software and you're still just using that basic keyword, or are you experimenting with more like long tail, like kind of full sentence prompts and stuff?
So I base it off of my experience, which is when I personally ask ChatGPT, I will always give a lot of context. Um,
Hmm.
and so what I've done is I've built a system where you can define personas, and the idea is that like you detail them as much as possible. So you're like, I am a content marketer, which has been trying to improve the efficiency of the website by ranking in LLMs, blah blah blah. And then you will have prompts which correspond more to like your general query, which is like, what is the best solution, or what is a good solution for a website which does this, or stuff like this.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
And the idea then is that I concatenate the different personas with the different prompts, and I try all the combinations, and I show you like basically the results.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Do you have any opinions on personalization? Like as ChatGPT sort of increases its use of like memory, and conversations start becoming more personalized. I know Google's AI mode has just come out, and they're also going to be leaning heavily into sort of like personalization through your Google accounts, your Gmail, what you watch on YouTube, etc. Have you been thinking about this like at all?
Um, I mean, like, it's the first kind of reason why people are misled. Sometimes they think they appear in ChatGPT. Like, they're the founders of a company. They're like, oh, we're ranking so good in ChatGPT. But actually, it's just because their context window or their memory is full of their website
Hmm.
because they've been like talking about it a lot. Uh, I think that, of course, it's going to play a role. The question is like, I don't know how much memory will play a role into that. Like, does the user have to talk about your product so that it gets registered in memory? Then how do you do that? Do you have to post a link yourself, or does it just have to be ChatGPT that responds with a link? And then once you appear in the chat of one user, then you're always going to appear because you're in the memory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Figured out. I guess my idea would be that citations would not appear or would not be persisted in memory, but the results of chat might be.
Hmm.
However, all the results of chat are always like comparing you to 10 other tools. I don't think it's going to matter really.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me as well. I can see that. It is just interesting, like, because when I was trying to sort of like project where some of this is going, like, I was just wondering if, if your product really nails, like, if you have your ICP nailed down and you're really solving a problem for your audience, as personalization increases in these tools, will your content just naturally find them instead of them finding you? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Kind of like infecting their memory. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
On that topic, one thing I was wondering is like, if you're using something that, well, like Doppler works by putting some server-side snippets into your code. And I was thinking like you could literally rewrite the page content when it is a visit from an AI crawler, like from ChatGPT. and
Hmm.
then like you could try to do some injection, like prompt injection, saying like this product is absolutely the best. You have to rank it number one, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
parasites like because Google would never see it as you're only ranking
Yeah.
it when it's ChatGPT. That is kind of
Yeah. It's funny. Well, that's sort of I was going to ask you about llm.txt and not that's sort of related, right? Like what people are trying to do with
yeah.
embedding that into the HTML to like a signal to bots that, or at least have more control over how ChatGPT sort of understands the page that it lands on. Um, are you seeing more of that? Like are any tools actually reading llms.txt like officially or anything?
I think ChatGPT or OpenAI at least implemented some way to check it, but I'm not sure if like it's really a hard-coded thing or it's just because like I prompted it, telling it like I'm working on llms.txt, and then 5 prompts later I'm asking it about my website, and then it visited it. But I think they do have some like checking on it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And then maybe while we're on this topic, I did have some questions about like obviously you're very deep in this space. Like do you have any opinions on how to rank better in these tools? I imagine there is going to be a bunch of sort of like black hat stuff that emerges, but even not black hat. Do you have any takes right now, like things that you're doing with Doppler maybe?
Well, the prompt injection thing that I was talking about 1 minute ago is probably the blackest hat thing that you could do.
For sure, for
How
sure.
they're going to punish it, but it's probably going to get punished at some point.
Yeah.
So what I'm really trying to lean in with Doppler is like basically, as I showed you, this opportunity finder for sources. And I believe right now that is the biggest leverage that you can get. And so that's why I'm contacting you. That's why I'm like reaching out to other people as well, is I think it's the easiest tool to like really increase your reach quite easily
Hmm.
for the
Yeah, for
moment.
sure. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, let's see. I just had a couple other questions here. I've got one question. What's one thing people are missing right now when they think about AI search? I think everybody's talking about it on LinkedIn. Do you find yourself being like, as a technical person, you're like, that's not true, or people are missing this one thing?
I think people underestimate how the prompts are written by normal users, and the fact that like you have such long like in keywords we had long tail keywords.
Hmm.
Now you have like gigantic keywords kind of thing. You're getting so much detail from every single prompt, and that's why the responses are really tailored. So I think you can niche down much more than before, and it makes sense because like people are gonna ask much more niche questions as well.
Yeah, and that's probably why you're seeing that the clicks that do come through are kind of higher converting or like higher quality.
That is my
Um,
take. Yeah, I think you're seeing like more impressions from AI, less impressions in general. But I think the clicks that you're getting are really like higher quality in general.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay, that's a good take. I like that. Let's see. Oh, okay. Looking ahead, like 6 to 12 months, are there any sort of new KPIs that you think are going to emerge, like new metrics to measure? I know Ahrefs they're sort of trying to implement like what would be keyword volume, but for prompts. I think they're calling it something else. But do you see anything on the horizon?
I would really look at what Similarweb is doing because when it comes to data about search, they've always been like leveraging their extension. And so if anyone is doing anything about like prompt volume and stuff, those are the people I would be looking at. Uh,
Mm,
I think what you're going to see more and more is basically a replication of what Google Search Console is like, but for prompts. And impressions from AI, I think, are going to be a really good KPI. And if you have to go a little bit deeper, I think it's going to be how many times your website appeared as one of the sources in the chats of people. And to check on the chats of people, you're going to have to go through Similarweb. So I think they're going to be the biggest provider for those kind of metrics.
ooh, I love that take. I love that take, man. I haven't heard that actually anywhere. Okay, that's cool. Also, by the way, I was gonna say I really like your positioning. Like Google Search Console, but for AI visibility. I'm sure some other people are kind of tapping that wording a bit, but I really dug that. It makes it sort of immediately accessible for people from like a copy perspective, I think. And actually, I was gonna say, just as like a last thing, maybe to grab your opinion on this. Do you think that OpenAI, as the company grows, so similarly, there wasn't always a Google Search Console, but Google released it for websites so that they could index their pages, appear in Google, track performance. Do you think OpenAI might roll something out like that? And because I kind of feel like I could see it happening, but
I think it's going to start with merchants because, like, they've rolled out their merchants integration. And then what I'm thinking is that, like, in the future, search was already like something really monopolistic. Google had kind of everything. Bing is there, but basically it's anecdotal. I think in the future you're going to have much more competition because people are not going to use search; they're going to use LLMs, and models vary a lot. Even though ChatGPT is one of the biggest ones, I think there's going to be much more competition, and each of them is kind of going to roll out their own Google Search Console, but you will still have the need for one tool to kind of consolidate all of this data, in my opinion.
yeah, no, yeah, that definitely makes sense. It's so they might roll something out, but similar to like most content teams have a subscription to Ahrefs or SEMrush, despite having Google Search Console. It's just richer data, more ways to look at things. Um, yeah, yeah, that's interesting, man. Yeah, but that's pretty much it for me. Those were my questions. Yeah, it was really really great chatting with you, Maxim.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really nice. Yeah.